Hello, and welcome back to my studio in UABC. It's been a crazy first year here, and I've had the opportunity to work on countless incredible projects. Outside of that, I've also had the pleasure of designing many studios around the world, and will now be taking those designs a step further. As a music lover and mastering engineer, my world revolves around my monitoring. I sit in the studio all day listening to music. My goal is always to have the best possible monitoring experience, where the speakers and the room just disappear. If you watched my studio build series, you'll have seen a bit of what went into building the room and the speakers, as well as some of my journey that led me to that particular speaker design. In an upcoming video series, I'll be taking a deeper dive into some of the things I've discovered in my speaker design work, but more on that in a bit. Back in 2020, I introduced the GWM4. This was a relatively small, compact, and affordable two-way monitor, with the goal being to share some of what I was experiencing in my own studio with the larger custom speakers I had built myself. I named it the Model 4 because I had envisioned the potential for 3 larger models, even though at the time I had no idea what that would turn out to be. Based on my past experiences with different speakers, my R&D since, and completing this room, I've now managed to connect the dots and complete the series. It brings me great pleasure to introduce the GW Model 3, the GW Model 2, the GW Model D, and lastly, the GW Model 1, which you already know. Can you buy these speakers? No, but you can build them. The GWM2 is a design I'll be freely sharing in the next few months. Essentially a big instruction manual showing everything you need to know to build a speaker. No custom parts necessary, so you can go out, order everything, and then get them built in a handful of days. The other designs will be exclusive to rooms I design. The biggest reason for that is the acoustics should be the number one priority, and I want to make sure that they're going into a room that's appropriate for them. The other reason is if you can build a memory absorber, then you can basically build a speaker. It's not much more complicated. I'll be charging a small fee to tailor the design to each use case, and then I'll be providing some custom parts, guidance along the way, and then the final calibration. You can build these entirely on your own. You could have a local contractor or cabinet maker build them for you. You could order the cabinets CNC'd at a local shop, so all you have to do is assemble them, or you could order the cabinets entirely built and shipped to you ready to go. Why would you want to build these when you can just go out and buy something else? Well, the most obvious reason is cost. Higher-end studio monitors tend to cost 4 to 5 times the cost of the materials that go into building them. Adding to that, when looking at the larger models, where you might just be getting a slightly larger woofer, a slightly larger cabinet, the price tends to go up by thousands to tens of thousands. Now, I'm not saying speaker companies are ripping you off because a lot goes into running a profitable business. Most of the pricing is perfectly fair based on what goes into getting those speakers to you. Based purely on performance, these speakers and what goes into them would be comparative to something that's at least 5 times the cost. The more important reason why you may want to build these is for the same reason I started using custom speakers 10 years ago and have been on this journey since. It gave me something I couldn't find anywhere else. There's literally nothing like them. That's not to say that these are particularly groundbreaking or innovative, but creating a commercial product does require cutting some corners and making some compromises. Even just trying to ship these would be next to impossible. GWM2 speaker, each speaker will weigh over 350 pounds. That's already more than something like a PMC BB6 XBD system. My goal isn't to build speakers or sell speakers. It's to share what's possible and bring everyone closer to what I get to experience in my own studio. That's why over the next few months, I'll be releasing a video series looking at what went into designing these speakers and also looking at speaker design more in general. Why I made certain decisions, things I've discovered along the way, and what makes these unique. Speaker design is all about trade-offs. You're always losing something. A lot of the time, it comes down to cost and size. I want you to learn what goes into different designs, their limitations, and things to watch out for so you can make better purchasing decisions. A lot of the times people will listen to one speaker, then a completely different speaker, and come to conclusions like how they might love mid-domes or ribbon tweeters or hate horns. But unless you've done a fair test of those things, I'm sorry to say that what you think caused those differences was probably not the case. there were probably 10 drastically different things between those speakers, all contributing to what you heard. Even looking at the different models from ATC or PMC, which tend to be along the same lines, they can sound drastically different from each other. Hopefully this video series will help you understand some of these differences and how they contribute to how a speaker sounds. With that said, let's have a closer look at the different models. This is the Model 3. It's a relatively compact, near-field two-way design. It's got excellent drivers with this 12-inch mid, and then this waveguide with a compression driver, as well as phase correction. The goal for this design was something relatively simple and straightforward that anyone could put together without needing any kind of custom parts. Anyone could go out, order everything, and build it themselves in a handful of days. With that comes a few limitations, so I would consider this more of an entry-level design, even if it's comparatively excellent. The first limitation comes from it being two-way, so this mid here has to handle both mid-duty and sub-duty. Now, when it's playing those lower frequencies, that inevitably ends up coloring the upper frequencies. The next limitation comes from this waveguide here. While it's a pretty good waveguide, it's still somewhat limited in how it sounds and how effortless it is. To get something better, you would have to go with something custom. Lastly, the speaker is ported, which is somewhat of a necessity for a smaller two-way design like this without separate subs. And that does end up coloring some of the upper frequencies there in the mid-range. Now, anyone could build this for roughly $5,000 per pair, including all of the electronics. There's a very similar design on the market, which, with all the electronics needed, would end up costing around $25,000. So that gives you some perspective of where something like this could sit. Moving on to the Model 2, this is the main design I'd like to share with the world. It's nothing but an improved version of the speakers I spent many years working on before building out this room. It may not look like it with this particular prototype, but it is a three-way design. In my particular setup here, I have this standalone cabinet with the 12-inch mid and waveguide, and then I'm using one of these subs on the wall. This model will be available in a number of different configurations. It can be entirely standalone with a forward or rear-facing sub to approximate flush mounting. It can have the subs flush mounted, as I have here, or the entire system can be flush mounted using my proprietary decoupling system. For the standalone version, there will also be an option to add some wings, which reduce edge diffraction. There will also be certain choices to make for the electronics depending on the level of performance you're after for amps and DACs. These speakers use a sealed 15-inch sub. Then there is a 12-inch mid, which is the same driver as in the GWM3, except this time it's only being used as a mid, and so it's in a sealed enclosure. Now what's interesting is this enclosure is actually bigger than the GWM3 enclosure, even though it's only being used as a mid. Now it's pretty unheard of in the studio monitor world to have cabinets this big just for a mid, and we'll get to why that is in the video series. Lastly, there is an asymmetrical waveguide I designed with a modified compression driver. As far as I know, this is the only speaker system available that is both decoupled down to below 10 Hz and completely free of rocking modes. When a speaker sits on a decoupling system and produces low frequencies, it causes the entire cabinet to rock back and forth, distorting higher frequencies. The tweeter is sensitive to movements of even just a few microns. Rather than trying to come up with a complex system that minimizes these rocking modes, I took a much simpler approach. The cabinets are separated so that the sub sits on a decoupling platform, which I'm standing on. This is a pre-constrained system weighing almost 100 pounds on its own. The rest of the speaker, playing above 100 Hz, is then completely separate from this and is effectively rigidly coupled to the floor, not allowing for any movement or distortion. The system is available both for the standalone option and for flush-mounted options. This platform also uses constrained layer damping to not have any ringing. The rough cost to build a pair of these, including all the materials, my design fee, as well as all the electronics, comes out to roughly $13,000. The design will be slightly adjusted for each use case and how you plan to build the cabinets. Now we get to the GWMD. D is for dome. When I first built out this room, I had no idea how it would turn out, because it was largely an experiment, since the only way for me to test out these speakers that need to be flush mounted was to build them in the room. Now, theoretically, a system without waveguides should be ideal and have less coloration. So I thought eventually, after working on these for a while, I'd switch out the system, just the center section of the system, for something using no waveguides and some domes. After a few months of working in this room, I finally got around to testing this dome-based system, and I was shocked to find that I wasn't a fan. After matching the frequency response, the distortion and time domain behaviors were nearly identical, but the speakers sounded completely different. This dome-based system uses these Blisma beryllium tweeter and mid-dome, which are pretty much the best domes on the planet, and then this Purify mid-bass woofer. The rest of the system is identical to the GWM2 speaker, so it's got the same options, and this goes with a 15-inch sub, making it a 4-way system. When you're looking at systems with mid-domes like this, going with a 4-way system using a mid-bass and then a sub is really the only option if you're looking for the best sound quality. The system has very snappy transients in a way that I find colored and unnatural. They just don't disappear like the other systems do. If you work on certain genres of music more like pop or EDM, where you want a more aggressive sound, this may be what you're after, but I'm personally not a fan. I'll be offering this as an option in case someone is looking to push a dome-based system to the extreme. If you ever visit, you can have the chance to compare the GWM1 to the GWMD and see just how drastically different these speakers can sound. Lastly, we have the GWM1. This design is only available for flush-mounted systems and is redesigned for every room. The room is essentially designed around the speakers since they're incorporated into the shell of the room. The system can have 1 to 4 subs, depending on the use case and the size of the room. Now, the main difference between these and the GWM2, aside from potentially having more subs, comes in with these larger waveguides. They extend the asymmetrical directivity to lower frequencies and allow for lower crossover points. Having the single large beryllium compression driver handle everything from 600 Hertz and up is pretty magical. I still have a lot of work to do finalizing these designs and putting together the final set of plans, so stay tuned over the next few months. Along with that will come the new video series sharing what goes into creating a great speaker. Thanks for joining me.